What is popping, y'all? I want to welcome y'all to the No Level Cap podcast, and I also want to apologize because we just had one of the most live and weird pre-show experiences I've ever had. But I guess it's just the spirit just in us, bro. We excited. Black Panther just came out. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Y'all know what it is. I gotta introduce y'all to the crew. We got the collectors and Twitch streamer extraordinaire, Will Coleman. What's popping, Will?
So if y'all just seen the movie not too long ago before this, so it's a little fresh on my mind. I got a few thoughts. I can't wait to tell y'all what I think about it. I will tell y'all this. I enjoyed the movie, but I'll elaborate a
Hey.
little further.
Next up, we got the Black Daredevil and the best actor in Austin, Texas, Terrence Flowers. What's popping, Terrence?
Yo, what's going on, people? Ooh, Wakanda Forever. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to talk about this movie. I will admit, and I just want to give a real quick shout out to Kevin Conroy, man. Rest in peace to him. Hearing that news yesterday, we're recording this on a Saturday, and hearing that yesterday, that was definitely left me kind of bummed. And seeing this movie, it kind of helped lift my spirits. So, rest in peace to him. But ultimately, we are here to talk about Wakanda Forever and give our thoughts on it. So I'm looking forward to that.
It's a good bringing that up. It's still a good point though, because so much of the movie is about dealing with grief and how you process it. So,
I mean, he was an important part of all our childhoods, many childhoods. So Kevin Conroy, much love to him and rest in peace to him, and prayers out to his family and whatnot. Yeah.
Lastly, we got the living cartoon and the man with the golden voice, Rakeem Beck. What's poppin', Rakeem?
Yeah, I'm black too, and we saw Black Panther, and I must say I had a great time enjoying myself. And I'm looking forward to having a conversation about this movie because I think it's going to be interesting. I want to see everyone's perspective on it.
I'm just a little disappointed that he was like, I'm black too, and we just saw Black Panther too. Like that I was just looking for that extra little bit of Rakeem spice that he normally put in the shit. But I mean, I know we're gonna get it anyway.
I'm black too. Black Panther too.
And plus, we got enough Rakeem spice before the podcast because my God, we just not gonna talk about what happened and what popped up on the screen. We just gonna keep it going. And lastly, I am Sage Ashford, the man who won't shut up. Y'all know on the No Level Cap podcast, we talk about all the anime, all the gaming, all the nerd culture, none of the bullshit. We back, episode 36. Y'all know No Level Cap goes live every Monday. If you prefer the video version, we're on YouTube. If you're a fan of the audio version, we're live on Spotify as well. We also put up bite-sized clips of the podcast on TikTok and on Twitter. So, come get at us. Come see us. Come see about us. We gonna be the best Monday morning thing you watch because I mean, ever since Undisputed just started talking about Tom Brady and the Lakers all damn day. So if it's not obvious, we all saw Black Panther 2 and we had to talk about it because we did the intro segment talking about Black Panther. When we saw the trailer, we had to talk about the trailer, and now I wanted to get back and talk about the actual film. And so I guess I want to go around the room and try just kind of like get a temperature of what y'all thought. And so, Will, you said you had something you wanted to bring up. You wanted to go into detail. What did you think of it since you're the one that saw it the freshest, even though we all, I think, just saw it yesterday. So what's up, Will?
Well, for me, like I said, I enjoyed the movie kind of like from top to bottom. I was getting there a little late because even though I got into town on time to get to the theater, I got hit by every single red light getting to the theater. So, let's just say I wasted another 10 minutes of my life in traffic. So,
But
I
with
missed some.
ads being the way it was, you ain't miss shit, did you?
No, surprisingly, I actually ended up in the movie when I got in there. So I was like, oh, so the movie's already going. So there wasn't that many ads going when I got there. So I missed maybe the first 10, 15 minutes of the movie. So I'm just like,
not me and Rakeem's experience.
So that was my problem. But other than that, where they dropped me off at, it dropped me off like right when things were starting to kind of heat up a little bit. So I was like, okay, so I'm here now. Y'all got me stuck into the movie. And I'm gonna bring this up here because I kind of want to get it out the way because it's on my mind. I love the direction of this movie. I love the effects. I love everyone's portrayal of their characters. They did a great job, especially Miss Angela Bassett and I can't think of his name right now. Who played Namor? But I know his last name is Huerta.
Tenoch Huerta.
Thank you, Tenoch Huerta. I love his portrayal of Namor. Mm-hmm. Spot on. But just a silly thing, and don't hurt me for this, people. is this also like some kind of like not an inside joke, but playing on the stereotype that black people and water don't mix?
I didn't think about that.
It hit me the most during the ship scene, and I was just like,
yeah, but we beat our greatest weakness in this film, so it's still a W as far as I'm concerned.
we take those.
Delayed W's, yeah, but W's nonetheless.
Yes, we take those, but yeah, just to keep it short and simple, I love the movie. I love the portrayal. I love the subject matter, which Sage said earlier before we got into this, that is talking about grief. It's covering the overarching theme of grief, trying to overcome it, trying to basically kind of deal with it and process it as a whole. Because I won't even lie, Ryan Coogler got dealt a horrible hand going into this movie with the script being done and then the untimely passing of Chadwick Boseman. And I have to say, I was definitely wondering how this would go. And this is also a moment of you can't please everybody because we really couldn't think of a way to recast him. But we also couldn't think of a way to like really truly do the thing that they did in this movie. So it was just like, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I think Ryan Coogler did a great job. I think he did an amazing job doing what he did and doing that. Now, I will admit, for 2 hours and 42 minutes, I think we could have cut some corners somewhere. I will admit.
Yeah, it was a long movie.
Long movie.
There was some spots.
The Rings ass runtime.
I like the movie, but I think they could have cut a couple corners somewhere and like saved us a little time and kind of streamlined a few things here and there. But I won't knock it too hard for what it is. So, but I'll say that, and we can go into the next person.
What would you give it out of 5?
Out of 5 stars?
Yeah.
At the moment, 4.
All right.
For me. Mm-hmm.
Rakeem, me and you actually went and saw it last night. It was a interesting experience. We like tried to get everybody else in town that we know to go see it with us, and nobody else. So it was damn near like a mandate, but whatever. So we went, checked it out.
No one else had to know about that, Sage. It was just between us.
All right.
Hey, you asked for more personality, Sage. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Definitely asked for more personality. So the only thing that I can say that I know me and you both had the same problem with it was that it was 30 fucking minutes of ads. Like AMC out of control. I'm not gonna lie to you. We showed up, I think 15 or 10 minutes early, 15 minutes early, got in the theater 10 minutes early, and sat there for 40 minutes. Because 10 minutes until the start time of the movie and another 30 minutes of ads. And then finally at like, what was it, 8:30 or 8 o'clock? I think we booked, like, we got the 7:30 start time. And then at 8 o'clock, the film fucking started. Like, it was nuts. But what did you think of the film as a whole?
I enjoyed the film as a whole. Well, I enjoyed the film as a whole. The main things that maybe my perspective of the film that I really enjoyed, maybe other people don't talk about, the sound direction and the cinematography from a shot perspective was masterful. There's one shot in this movie that I told Sage about last night where Namor is coming down to his people after they discover that one of theirs has been killed when they try to save Shuri. And he comes down as Kublai Khan, as the god. And he comes down like from the heavens like Tommy from freaking Power Rangers when he was the White Ranger. It's like the exact same scene. But the shot he got when he put up their symbol, like he's about to shoot the Kamehameha out, that looks so cool. I want that as a wallpaper. It was one of the coolest shots I've ever seen. He just looked like such a freaking boss. One thing I'll say about this film is that it does deal with grief. But people sometimes going online, you hear things and they'll mislead you. Some people said that they kind of milked the grief too much. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. In fact, the first 10 minutes of the movie where they deal with now we're getting to spoiler territory a little bit, but I mean, who cares?
Yeah, I guess we hadn't said it, but yeah, this is going to be a spoiler review of Black Panther.
We'll title it that when we put it up, but like if you don't get it, it's spoiler. Like I'm not one of them ones. It's because like first off, we not one of the people lucky enough to get like premieres and see it before everybody. So like by the time you see this, you'll have had the weekend to see it. And if you see it later in the week, I mean, like you've had plenty of time. So like, this is going to be a spoiler.
Also, who's going to talk about a movie for a whole last hour and not like spoil some things?
Exactly.
I mean, people do that. Like, and people want those reviews. We just not gonna be the ones giving y'all that.
Yeah.
Like we do spoilers so that we can actually talk about the film. So there you go.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rakeem.
Getting back to the topic, when they dealt with Chadwick Boseman's death in the beginning, where Shuri is frantically trying to get a cure for his illness, they kind of went through that segment really fast. I was actually surprised.
Yeah, they jump you right
they
into
went from
it.
the death segment into the funeral. It was like immediate. I guess because they couldn't use any footage for Chadwick Boseman, so they just kind of, instead of going through that process, they kind of streamlined it, and they got to the mourning phase pretty early, and then they kind of jumped you into the movie after that. They shortly introduced the conflict with people trying to squander Wakanda's resources, and then the introduction of Namor's people, whatever you want to call them. I like Namor better because it actually has meaning now.
Yeah.
But I felt like I felt like this movie didn't drag that much. I was surprised, even though it was long, but I didn't feel like it dragged too much. Like, there's definitely movies I've watched, Lord of the Rings or maybe not Lord of the Rings, but other movies I've watched, like, you can feel the length, and you're like, when is this going to end? In this movie, I kind of was like, I saw the pacing, I thought it was just right. I thought the characters did a good job. I think the actresses did a good job. Angela Bassett, being the boss that she is, the scene where she talks about her grief, has she not given enough when Shuri's kidnapped? That was powerful, bro. That was a very powerful scene. Riri Williams, it was pretty cool because I liked Riri in this movie simply for the fact that she felt like a real black person in the situation. She talked like one, like, man, she sounded like my cousin. That's what I was like.
Know what I'm saying, bro?
So that was really cool. You know, kind of juxtaposing this regal society with Shuri, who's a princess, with just a girl who lived in a regular society, who was a genius, but basically had a normal upbringing. That was a pretty cool juxtaposition. I'm interested in seeing how much more of this delves into the Marvel universe as a whole, now that we've had a whole bunch of new characters introduced. And, you know, looking forward as we have our new Black Panther as well, seeing how she permeates throughout the rest of this story. So overall, I liked it. I think I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Oh wow, that's really high. That ain't gonna lie to you. Although at that point we might as well just say a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Once you start using like half decimals and shit, I'm like, you might as well just go
9.
next one up. Yeah, so it's just a 9. Like, Rakeem really fucked with this film. I mean, I respect it. Terrence, what did you think of the film?
I definitely have a lot of thoughts, but I'm going to try my best to condense them. One thing that I'll say is, of course, Chadwick's passing was highly unfortunate and something that all of us were deeply affected by. That being said, I think that him not being there gave us a better film as a result, because if we just had another Black Panther film with him in it, it would have been great, no doubt. But I think it would have just been, in a sense, like another Marvel movie. This movie had to be more than just a Marvel movie. It had to rise above the tropes of the MCU, rise above like all the complaints that we've been hearing about for Phase 4 and just the MCU as a whole, kind of like the MCU kind of like pushback that's been a thing throughout this year. This movie, I feel like this movie rose above all that, because this felt like, and this is going to be weird to say, this felt like an actual film as opposed to just another MCU movie. And what I mean by that is it was really well acted. And I'm not saying any of the MCU, none of the MCU movies are like well acted. Not at all. I'm not saying that. It's just that this movie felt like everybody was really giving their all. I mean, you have like Angela Bassett. She gave a very powerful performance as the Queen. Like, she was amazing. And Letitia Wright, she surprisingly did a lot of heavy lifting in this movie. Like, there were certain scenes that were like all on her shoulders, and I think she did an amazing job with what she was given. There were just times in the movie where, I know Rakeem, Rakeem and Will, both of you spoke about how this movie dealt with grief and just processing it. There were times in the movie where, I think Rakeem, you spoke about sound design, where there was just no music. It was just silence. And it was like the characters kind of like just looking up. You could see them like processing in their head what had happened, you know, what was going on. You could just see the conflicting feelings. And it was just really powerful just watching that kind of stuff happen. some other stuff is that, of course, as a Marvel movie, it's going to have its jokes in it, but they kept the jokes. They let the jokes be appropriate. The jokes,
bald-headed demon.
I know some might feel some type of way about him saying that, but
the character though.
Yeah. But I'll say this: that the jokes felt appropriate when they were there. They were fine. Like specifically for the city scene where Okoye and Shuri, they were going to pick up Riri. The jokes that they had there felt appropriate because it felt like this culture clash, like you mentioned, Rakeem, like Riri being kind of like this regular, kind of like person. She's just a regular black girl, outside of, being like super smart. Obviously, she's just a normal, well, she's not a teenager technically, but she's young adult. I'll put it that way.
Oh, she's 19.
Yeah.
19,
yeah. Well, I know some people, those ages get kind of murky for teenage water, but whatever. Young adult. We'll just say young adult. But yeah, the jokes that were there, they worked. And when it was time to process, the main thing that I wanted to make sure they didn't do was during times where there was grief that needed to be processed, they didn't have no jokes there. Because that was an issue that came up in She-Hulk, the episode where she's going through like the therapy circle and they're all just sitting there just talking about, and she's talking about how people like She-Hulk more than they like Jen. And, everyone there is telling her that they like Jen, and she just kind of like, you could tell she's growing to accept the Jen side of herself more. And then they kind of ruin all that by making this joke with Porcupine, and it just throws the whole mood off.
Yeah.
They don't do
I didn't know where you was going with that, but then like when you mentioned the poor, I was like, fuck, I hated that moment. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so it's like one of those things where I'm glad none of that happened in this movie, because if it had it happen, that would have been the most inappropriate tonal shift ever. But yeah, I just felt like this movie was really powerful. I do want to see it again just because it felt like a lot to process. There was a lot that was going on. And there's some stuff that I feel like I might have missed that I need to go back and check again. But overall, I think it was a really great movie. I will say, like, kind of like maybe like a third or so into the movie, I was like, I don't know if I want to say this is the best of Phase 4. But then it got to the point where the Queen died. And after that, it just got better and better. And I was like, I think I do want to call this the best movie of Phase 4, just in terms of just being like an overall film. I think it might be the best. And in terms of rating, I'm teetering between a 4 and a 4.5. I will admit it did run a little bit long, and there were some scenes that felt like they dragged a little bit to me, but I don't think that it just like it's to the film's discredit. Like I think like it's a great film. I just don't think it's perfect. It's like one of those films where it's not perfect, but that doesn't mean that it's a lesser film. It isn't like a 10 out of 10 in the way that other films might be, like other great films. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was a very powerful movie.
What's up, Rakeem?
Oh, one last thing. Remember I brought on earlier about the sound design of the film. One thing I forgot to mention was that something that I noticed early on in the scenes is that they would have whoever the sound designer was, they would have a theme for scenes.
Yeah.
And sometimes they would carry over and like branch out. Like the greatest example is when they had the ship scene where the I forgot the Talokan people were
Talokan,
introduced.
yeah.
Talokan people introduced, and they had like the sirens, and they would sing. People who were like
that was creepy.
Man,
I know some people talk about how creepy that was. Yeah,
that was really
actually
cool, like a horror
when
scene.
I came into the theater.
Oh wow!
So, you missed a good bit.
Yeah.
So the siren scene happened, and if you notice, like when they were introduced, the song blended into the overarching song they had going on. There was always like these undertones. You'd hear like a little bit of carryover in scenes. Like they would lower it down sometimes, like a lower beat in certain scenes. They would raise up and like carry the theme up higher. That permeated throughout the whole film. It was very loosely tied together. There were some scenes even felt like it was one song with different phases just going through each scene. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that's how a lot of really great film scores are. Is they'll usually have like an overarching like main theme, and they take bits and pieces from that main theme and create other pieces of music around it throughout the film. So yeah, that's something good that you glad you pointed that out.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Terrence.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen all the Phase 4 films?
The only one I think I haven't seen, and we've always joked about this, is Eternals. I think that's the only one that I haven't seen, if I'm recalling correctly.
Because I actually
wonder why.
me and Keem had to. I mean, I still want to see Eternals. You know, I don't know if it's. I mean, you don't have no idea if it's bad or not. So like, there's really no point in trusting what reviewers say, because reviewers, like, when we looked at the Metacritic score for this, it was like 67, and I'm like, that's insane.
Oh, it must have
This
gone
film-
down because originally it was at 71 when I saw it.
When me and Keem saw it last night, like right before we went to see the film, it was like a 67. So like, I can't really trust like reviewer scores. I'm gonna have to see the film Eternals, and because that was the thing. Me and Keem on the way back, he asked me what I thought of the film, and I really didn't want to get too deep into it because I knew we was gonna have to do the podcast. And but like I did say, like, to me, I think this was the best of Phase 4. Problem is, I've only seen like half of Phase 4. I know this is better than Black Widow.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
To me, I would say, just because of the themes that it was dealing with, and because this film in question was more of like fan service than anything, it's better than Spider-Man 3. It's by leaps and bounds better than Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like,
yeah,
that shit just, I know a lot of people was touched by it and they liked Wanda and all that shit, but like Wanda, she just wasn't a very compelling villain for me. Plus, you've ruined that character. Like, she can't be a part of the Avengers anymore, and there's still a lot of stories that you probably want Wanda around for. Vision, same thing. Like, he's gonna be a lesser character without Scarlet Witch. So like, even from like a comic book fan perspective, and then from like an actual, from a lot of things, I didn't dig it overall. Like, that film, like, I came out of it and I was like, it was alright, but I wasn't crazy about it. As opposed to this film, which I'm like, it's not a perfect film, but it is a really good film. If I had to give it a rating, it'd be like a 4 out of 5. Solid, great film. Like, I don't know what all these people giving it 66s, and I think Telegraph gave it like a 20, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck y'all
20?
talking about. This was, yeah, right. Like, what in the fuck? I think it might probably like a 2 out of 5 or something like that.
You know, it's one of those things where I feel like some reviews, you know, they like to be polarizing just to kind of like get people to see like, what are they talking about? You know.
So I think it's some of that, but then I also think it's possible that some of the reviews maybe.
You want to know what it is? This movie's too cultured for them.
I was finna say something similar to that, actually, without a joke. You know, it's certain films that are super beloved in the Black community that just kind of, when it reaches people that aren't necessarily Black, like, I don't know how many of y'all have seen. I know Rakeem's seen this film, but Harlem Nights is one of the funniest.
A long time.
Harlem Nights is one of the funniest films of all time to me. Like, one of my favorite fucking films. Like, I fucking love that film. But like, if you look up the reviews on that film is ass. And I would probably say the same. Like, I would not be surprised if it was the same for like Friday and in other like classic Black films. And you know, I feel like sometimes if it's a little too Black, it can go over some people's heads. And so I don't know. That might be some of what you're seeing when you look at the reviews. That's probably part of the problem. What's going on, Will?
That was actually a part of a review I actually seen where someone kind of gave like a hit at Namor in his part of the movie when they were kind of like explaining a bit of his lore and him explaining his past. Someone explained that they didn't like that part, but they was like, maybe this is just something that's going over my head because I can't relate to him. And I'm just like, I see what you're saying. There's a few people that have actually said that about that part that they like, I don't get that, but it's going over my head.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. The only thing I didn't like about Namor and Talokan, the only thing I didn't like about those specifically is I didn't like the fact they had vibranium, which is kind of fucked up because that's the core part of the film, but I still just didn't like it. Like, in the Marvel universe, like it's just Wakanda with that shit. They're the ones with like the biggest, like, wherever that shit came from, and they probably did explain it at some point, but wherever that shit came from, it was just Wakanda with that shit. Atlantis didn't get access to it. Nobody else got access to it. But I get where the film was coming from, where it was trying to just tie these two nations that were effectively uncolonized throughout all of modern history. It was trying to tie those two nations together. And without that, the film doesn't work, especially when you get to the latter part of the film. And the only reason that Shuri shows mercy on Namor at the end, or Kul Khan, the only reason she shows mercy on him at the end is because, like, oh, your people are just like my people, and you are just trying to protect your people. As far as the feel, like I don't know what's holding it back for me from giving it a perfect 5. I guess I don't know. Like for me, I'm when I watch a lot of shows and films, it's not that hard to grasp me emotionally. And this film, I was kind of expecting to be like an emotional gut punch. I was kind of expecting to be like barely holding myself together because I have my own struggles with certain shit. And I was like, all right, well, but then like I never really felt like that. The one time I did feel like, okay, y'all really are understanding what grief is like, is right after they announced that T'Challa's dead. She's hurriedly trying to do the create the heart-shaped herb, and she fails, and then basically after that it's like, yep, that's it. And she has this look on her face like she's broken up, and then they cut to this happy ass funeral. And I was like sitting there looking at the funeral, and I'm like, okay, I understand in different cultures people handle funerals differently, but then and it was like surreal, but then they kind of closed in on Shuri, and it's just kind of silent for a second. And I was like, yeah, that's what that's like.
Yeah.
That's what the loss of somebody is like. The world goes on for everybody else, but for you, the world stops and nothing is ever the same anymore. You have to shoulder the pain and find a way to get on with it, but nothing is ever the same anymore. And so like that part I loved. I was like, this is fucking brilliant. Another thing that I really loved about the film, I don't know if y'all caught this, the part in the UN where they kind of parallel Ramonda talking to the UN, and imagine somebody asking for access to a resource that is not theirs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that I know what you're talking about now.
We need vibranium. You should be giving us vibranium. I'm like, I bet they didn't agree to give you vibranium. You just decided that you came over there on like what's my man's name? I don't know if y'all gonna know this history reference. Perry with the black ships came over there to Japan and was like, look, y'all just gonna start negotiating with us, like that type shit.
I think that sounds vaguely familiar. Vaguely familiar.
That's just how that they was like forced, like they had an isolation. Japan had like this isolationist stance, and like suddenly they were just like forced to negotiate and like trade at the edge of like, I don't want to say his first name wrong. I think it's Nate Perry. I'm not gonna pretend like I remember that part, but I just remember that was like they basically tried to force them to like, they did force them to like trade with other countries. And this was like, look, we gonna force you. You finna give up vibranium. Like that's just what it's gonna be. But like the interesting thing was that France was doing like a lot of the talk, the big talk. And I was like, France, you usually don't hear about France a lot. And I was like, I wonder if they going where I think they're going. And so later they introduced Nakia, and Nakia's in Haiti. And I was like, okay, so you are doing what I think you're doing. If you don't know, a part of the reason why Haiti is poor is because at one point the Haitians had like a revolution, and like they was like, look, fuck all this slave trade, fuck all that bullshit, get off our country, get out of our country. And they kicked France the fuck out. And France was like, look, that's cool, we left, but we gonna need some guap up off you. Like you the slaves, they were worth money. The businesses we set up, they was worth money. We gonna need some money up off you. And so they asked Haiti to pay like some absurd amount of money, even for back then. It was like some ridiculous sum. It was effectively like several $billion. Like it
still affects the country to this day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was like, so I'm looking it up. It was 150 million francs, which in today's money is like close to 21 billion, some shit like that. And by the way, America took the rest of that debt. So America's taking that debt now. So just in case our hands are not clean. Well, America's hands are not clean in that. But I was like, wow, that's real. And just in case you think I'm losing it, one of the leaders of the Haitian Revolution was named Toussaint. And so at the end of the film, when they introduced T'Challa's son, his name is Toussaint. And so I was like, oh, wow, this is super fucking clever. And like they kind of, and I was like, so that's because like when you think about it, France was basically basically asking for some shit that was not theirs, and if they couldn't get it, they was gonna try to force it out of them. They literally, because like the soldiers that they brought in, if I'm not mistaken, like I think that's what they were implying. Those soldiers were French.
Yeah,
were French.
Yeah, that's what they were.
So
implying.
like, yeah. So like they was like, no, everybody got their hands dirty at this UN, and like just trying to work with them was gonna get you screwed. And so I was like, okay, wow, that's crazy. But like overall, I thought the film like there's so many parts to it that I loved. I'm gonna ask y'all, what did y'all think of Namor? Like Rakeem, like I know you like that one shot with Namor, but what did you think of him as a villain?
As a villain, I think he did a good enough job. I feel like he felt a little overpowered at times.
Man,
he felt almost insurmountable until they figured out what his weakness was. But like as a character, knowing his backstory, it felt like a character that was kind of frustrating to a degree too, because he's a villain. You see where he's coming from, but the way he goes about his vengeance, you can't get with it. Because the way he handled like killing Angela Bassett and attacking Wakanda felt so extra and unnecessary that I couldn't rock with him after that. Like, there's nobody who would be on his side after that. I don't care who they were. And I mean, it was understandable when they went to war after that because you came on our terms, came to our city, messed it up, killed our queen, and just thought you were going to dip out. Yeah, of course she was going to be angry about that. But as a villain, I think he accomplished what he needed to do. And of course, I learned from you directly that historically Namor is kind of like Black Panther, is kind of like arch nemesis to a degree. They go back and forth against each other so many times in the comics. So this is kind of cool that we get to see that in a movie. And watching this movie, I was like, man, I totally get it. Because even how it ended, I could totally see how this could come up again later with them being enemies again. It's just like a very tepid alliance. You can even feel it from the other, Namora, who was talking to Namor, like, while we bend the knee to the Wakandans, like, there's still like some tension there. So you could play into that. Maybe they're allies now, but something happens down the line, they end up fighting again. But yeah, overall, I thought he was okay. I thought he did a good job. I thought he portrayed the character well. I ain't gonna lie, I need to find some water grenades because them things was messing everybody up. Man, the weapons I have never seen.
When they brought out like hundreds of them and pretty much just blew up that ship, man, good Lord.
Man.
When I saw them bring that net full of them grenades, I said, oh, it's not looking good.
I said, it's a wrap.
Not looking good for us.
I had one question though. Did y'all notice that like out of water? I know Namor was a mutant, so they really explained why he looks the way he does, why he's different from them. They totally explained that. But I was questioning, like, out of water they were all blue, but when they went into water they were back to their normal tone. Was that like because of the oxygenation or something like that? I was very confused.
Yeah,
great question.
They did. Yeah, I know what you're talking about because that's something that I was talking about with some friends of mine too after we saw the movie, and I think that's just a matter of just when they drank that liquid on the shores, it just affected them, so they just were naturally blue out of the water. But when they got in the water, it kind of left them. I just think that's just the effect that they just chose to show like how they are in water versus how they are on land, I guess.
Right. And I do think to an extent, that's just something that they needed to do to delineate, because it's obviously a lot of what or what I would know from the comics you have to toss out. I think that there are multiple tribes of Atlanteans in the comics, and some of them are blue and some of them are just white and other races and whatnot. But I think they just decided to go with like a unifying look just to like kind of make it easier for people to understand, because there's so much information already being thrown at you.
Yeah. That and they also maybe didn't want them to look too much like the people from Avatar.
There is that.
Good point.
Very good.
I ain't gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. If the Tolokans go after the people from Avatar, the people from Avatar don't stand a chance.
Oh no, heck no.
Fight,
no. Totally different.
No.
They were shooting
Terrence,
come back from the dead, man.
Did you think they were good? Did you think Namor was a good villain?
I like Namor. Like I really like the actor's portrayal of him. Like he did an excellent job. And one thing that I didn't point out in on my I guess like my overall thoughts of the film is I really liked the use of multiple language in this film. Like I really mean it when I say like this is the most cultured MCU film. Like not only from like a black and the Latin American experience, but just the different language. I mean, you had Lupita was definitely flexing her language skills. I mean, because she knows Spanish in real life.
She knew all of it. Apparently.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, her character like went to English, Spanish, French, the Wakandan language, and then the language of the Talokan. Yeah. What'd you say, Will?
It's called Yucatec Mayan. I kept that detail in my head when I heard it. I'm like, okay, that's the language they speak. I got it.
Which I don't know. Like, is that a real language or is that made up for the film?
That's a good question.
Because it's kind of like Wakandan. Wakandan is like a mixture of a bunch of African languages, right? It's not like it's not a real African language, correct?
Yucatec Maya is actually a real thing.
Oh.
I just looked it up. It's a spoken language. It's referred to as speaking simply as Maya or as Mayatan. It's one of the 32 Mayan languages of the Mayan language family.
Okay. Well, that's good to know because I wasn't sure if it was, because a lot of movies do it where like for like sci-fi and fantasy, they'll like make up a language that's kind of like based on a pre-existing language, but it's not real. So I wasn't sure. Like I definitely didn't mean like any offense in that regard. It's just that I wasn't sure if it was real or not. But yeah, I really liked how they used different languages throughout this movie, and they also had different colored subtitles for the language to make it more accessible
to let you
let you know who was saying what.
That was really good. So I just really liked the usage of that. But back to Namor or Namor, no love, however you want to call it. But it's interesting, when you spoke on him, Rakeem, it just further reminds me of Killmonger. Like that difference in ideology is like you could kind of get behind what he's saying to an extent, but then you get to like the extreme side of it and it's like I don't know if I agree with this, and that's pretty much how Killmonger was. It's like there's part of how Killmonger thinks you can't help but agree with, but then he goes so far to the right in terms of like certain ideologies as like, no, I can't stand with this. That he was willing to kill the elders. And what you got, Will?
I know what it is, and I see what you're saying. What it is with Namor and Killmonger is that you can see what they're saying, you can understand what it is they're wanting to do.
Yeah.
It's when they take the action. It's the action that they do behind the words that they say.
Yeah.
So you hear them say this thing, and then they do it, and you're just like, okay, I didn't think you was gonna go that far. I set the goalpost here, you went right past what I was thinking. So that's why you just like, nah, I can't do this.
Yeah. But yeah, Namor, he didn't feel like he was a villain, but he didn't feel like a full-on villain. Like he definitely, at the end of the day, he wanted just to protect his people. And I mean, all of us want to do that, in some regard. We all have that preservation of not only self, but, people who are like us. So I get it. Yeah, it's just that difference in ideologies that's just really interesting the way that they go about that in Black Panther. Just that clash between T'Challa and Killmonger, and you have this clash between Shuri and Namor, and it's just really interesting. I like Namor. I thought that he had the appropriate amount of depth, more so than because I mean for the longest time, the criticism of the MCU was, oh, the villains aren't that interesting or they just get killed off and it's whatever. No, Namor, it seems like he's here to stay, and I know we're going to talk about that later, but yeah, I definitely want to see more of him. I think that he was really well done, and once again, I just really liked the mixture of Latin American, Mesoamerican culture in this movie. It was just so well done, and to my understanding, Namor, that's not his original background in the comics, right, Sage?
Not at all.
Yeah, no. Not at all. So the fact that they
basically took his actual comic background, it was like, get the shit out of here. Yeah. They just didn't want it no more. So
yeah, and I mean, hey, it seemed, at least in my opinion, just from what I've seen so far, it made him, more interesting of a character as a result. At least just from what I've seen. I don't know, like I know some of how Namor is in the comics, but I don't know like all of it. But just based on what I've seen in the movie, like I feel like this just feels like a more interesting version of him. But yeah, I really like Namor. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him.
Will, how did you feel? Like, did you think he was a good villain?
I thought he was a pretty okay villain. Like I was like Keem. I was kind of behind him for a minute till he took action and he did what he did, and I'm just like, I'm gonna have to sit you back on the shelf because I can't do this. I can't do this. I was with you till you did this, and I just think Tenoch Huerta just knocked it out of the park. Honestly, in my opinion, I think he did a great job playing the character up and giving that backstory that we have for his character, at least in the movie, giving us that and telling it like it is and just making it work. He just did a great job, and I've seen that he has other great credits to his name.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna have to see what else it is he did so I can be really sure on him. But Namor is gonna be someone I want to see more of too. I definitely want to see more of him. I don't know. I don't know if he should get a standalone or should he just appear again somewhere.
I don't think he can have a standalone film. I think he is along the lines of the Hulk. I think he's one of the last holdovers where he's bringing somebody else. I think he might be along with Hulk owned by Universal.
Really?
Damn! Wow.
Interesting.
And they've never used him.
Exactly.
Okay,
that's wild. I didn't know that was a thing. Wow. Huh.
Today
I
we
want
all
to say I read
new.
that somewhere. Like I could be wrong, but I believe he has to be in somebody else's film, be in an Avengers film, some shit like that. I don't think he can have a stand. Like I'd have to check that to be sure. I'll put it in the comments when we put the video up. But like I don't think so. So
okay then. All right. Well, wherever they decide to put him, I hope that they let this man get another shot at doing it and just bring him back to life, because I've never really seen this character like that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but I've never seen this character in my life.
Sorry, I was texting somebody.
Oh, my bad.
we thought you was on the research grind, bro.
But no, look, I appreciate y'all's opinion on Namor. Look, I wasn't fooled just because he was of South American descent. I wasn't fooled by none of that bullshit. He's still the same Namor he is in the comics. He's still a fucking idiot. I know people was talking all this shit. Like people was like, oh yeah, he's like Killmonger. And I seen somebody say Namor's argument might be easier if you were part of a colonized group. It might be easier to understand and appreciate. I was like, I don't know about all that. This man offered allyship at the tip of a spear. Like he got right in Ramonda and Shuri's face while they were mourning the death of their brother and their son. And he was like, you either gonna fight alongside us or you're gonna die you're gonna be the first ones to die. He wasn't asking for their help. He demanded their help. He showed up to, and I'm talking about the first time. He showed up to Wakanda and was like, look, you gonna help me, period. And they only did it because they was like, we don't know nothing about him, and we not trying to like cause get in a war if we ain't got to get in one. But like he showed up to Wakanda after the fact, and I know that they had killed two Talokan people. I know they had killed two of them. That's cool, but like you kidnapped their princess. What did you think was going to happen? Like we got to get our people back. Like you not just gonna kidnap the next person in the royal line and think you're gonna get off scot-free. That's not how that works. And in response, he showed up to Wakanda and killed thousands of people and their queen. And it was like, sure, you got to report for duty because we finna go ride on them, or I'm gonna ride on y'all. And like he wanted a cowed people. And in the end, to me, he was just a couple of steps above the colonizers he was complaining about. That's how I saw him.
That's a good point. That's
he was just like and he like that's how he is in the comics. He like a bully because he got so much strength, and he can kind of fool you in the comics too. Like, oh, y'all treat the oceans like trash, and you dump your trash and you waste there, you ruin things, and it's like, yeah, cool, but like that person that you just fucked over, they ain't had nothing to do with that, and like he wanted to kill Riri Williams, which I thought was crazy because I'm like, you find out like she didn't make that device for that purpose. Somebody bought the device and retrofitted it for that purpose, but that's not what the device was for. It was like a little homework assignment. And all that tells me is like it's too late. The genie is out of the bottle. And he kind of knew that too. So I'm like, well, what are you killing Riri for? Like she's innocent. Like he never, and then also he didn't even give them a chance to even decide to bring the girl. Like they found the girl and they immediately was like, look, they immediately attacked them. Like they showed up in, I forget what city they was in America, but like they immediately just showed up and attacked them. And I'm like,
Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Oh, never mind.
Thank you.
I know she mentioned Chicago at the end of the film. I thought it may have been Chicago.
They picked her up at MIT.
Yeah, MIT. Yeah, you're right. I
was about to say, like, wait a minute. The comic, she's from MIT, so yeah, that lines up. But yeah, like that like bullshit. Like I don't buy this man. Like, so I never was on his side really. Like I felt for his history. Like when they showed his history and they showed his people, and his people basically looked around, was like, yeah, we seen the Spanish conquistadors, and we was like, it's time to get the fuck up out of here. I was like, you right. So his people abandoned, the surface world, went down to the ocean. I love this little history where they was like, they called me Namor, because I have no love for the surface world. I was like, that was cold. Like that line was cold.
Yeah.
But as far as him and even the part about him, cool Khan, the feather serpent god, I was like, oh shit, like that's dope.
My man's low key Kotal Khan. Kotal Khan from Mortal Kombat.
He
Not the
definitely
same
was
God,
just
but
like
I got you.
Out here praising
God,
the
but I
sun.
Yeah. But I was just like, man, I can't fuck with you, man. Like, you out here doing all this fuck shit, and then they're like, oh, but the surface world. I'm like, you done caused more problems for them than the surface world has. Hell. Yeah, like, in fact, the surface world never been over there and fucked y'all country up. So well, yeah, not yet. Well, I feel like they thought they was getting there, and then they got waxed. Which, okay, can we talk about this? Like,
yes, sir.
How much of the movie was just devoted to showing how badass all the women of Wakanda are?
Man,
they was on top of that. They was like,
it was about the women.
Them.
So if you think about it, the death of Black Panther, they were the ones in positions of power at that point. I mean,
yeah.
From the military standpoint, the Dora Milaje was always like that. So they were already set up perfectly to do that. They already had their history. But now that Angela Bassett and Shuri had a more prominent role in the movie, it was time. It was about them. I noticed a lot of online. I've noticed like a lot of Black women resonated with this.
Good.
I noticed that. Like they really were resonating with like seeing the movie, seeing these characters in these positions of power, showing different facets of it. Because sometimes some people can put women in positions of power in movies or television shows, and they can make it one note and not interesting. And some can really write the story correctly.
Boss it up. But they didn't do that.
I mean,
they actually wrote characters. Like they did a good job, I thought.
They still have to be a character. They can be in power, but they still need to be a character who presents like an emotional range. And they gave us everything emotional range you could think of, from top to bottom: sadness, anger, joy, confusion, some weird, love, everything. Everything was in.
That was a little random.
I ain't gonna lie.
What are you talking about?
It felt like it was some minor sexual tension between Riri and what's his name? Namor, when he showed her like the Atlantis world and stuff like that. I felt like
Shuri? You mean Shuri?
You mean Shuri?
Yeah. I'm sorry, yeah, Shuri. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
That didn't last long.
It didn't last long. No,
they cut that off real quick. You didn't have time to ship them. It didn't work.
Man, they did.
I don't know if I know what you're getting at. I don't know if I saw it so much as like romantic potential, but just maybe like this sense of understanding of each other. Okay. I don't know. I mean, you could argue that, I guess it depends on how you read it. Like, yeah, you could argue that maybe there was like some kind of like sexual romantic undertones there. But I think overall it's just that they kind of had just an understanding of each other's pain in a sense. Like, like each other's responsibilities, because they're both, in a sense, rulers of their country. So,
Right. But I also think it was her being like, damn, y'all kind of close to what I stand over. I'm supposed to be standing over here in Wakanda. You down here in Talokan. And we pretty fucking similar now that I'm kind of looking at it. Like our kingdoms are kind of pretty close together now that we kind of see that,
Well, keep in
mind, of wonderment.
Keep in mind, like at a certain point, she was like, I'll stay down here. And so, yeah, I can kind of see where Rakeem got that from, like this idea of almost like there could almost be like a marriage of convenience just for the sake of like uniting these two people, keeping some kind of sense of peace. And like, then the movie never says that, but it like you can kind of see how that could have happened if Nakia hadn't been like, look, fuck all that, we getting my people up out of here. What's going on, Terrence?
Hey, I'll put it this way: if they did have romantic tensions between each other, best believe Twitter was gonna have something to say about that. Oh, age gap. Oh, this is one hell of an age gap. Oh, he's over 500 years. And how old is Shuri in this movie?
I don't know. Real life Letitia Wright is like 29. So
yeah, best believe they would. Twitter would have had something to say about that.
She's 29.
Holy crap, man! She got range.
Will said it right. But yeah, I mean, there was a like I didn't realize because what was it? who was Okoye dating? It turned out, and I was like, what the fuck? I thought y'all was beefing or whatever. Like I don't know. Like it was parts of no. It was Io. It was Io. There was it was Io and was it Annika?
I think so.
Yeah, Indica.
Yeah.
I thought they was beefing for a little bit, but it turned out I was wrong. I was like, okay, well that's cool. But I mean, like just the women in this film was just putting in work the whole film over. Like Riri, which we hadn't talked about her. I felt like at a point Riri was almost a MacGuffin.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I know what you're getting at too.
Yeah.
When they got to the part where Shuri was talking to Namor and she was talking about how to, she created the device and this and that, and she was basically negotiating without Riri being there. I was like, damn, y'all done downgraded her into a MacGuffin. She's not a real character. Because she was a real, like at first when she showed up, she was just like what Rakeem said, like she felt like a black person like a black woman that you would actually know. Because I mean, she showed up with that classic line. Look, yesterday's price, not today's price. I was like, oh, fuck. She was out here getting people for their guap. I was like, let's go, Riri. And like, even the part where she showed up with the Ironheart suit, and I know somebody is going to ask this because I'm going to ask how y'all feel about Riri, but I know somebody's going to ask this at some point. No, she's nothing like what she is in the comics. Like, the only thing they got that's the same is that she still attends MIT, and she is working on her own kind of like armored suit. But other than that,
she's even younger in the comics, isn't she?
She's I think
15 or something 16. Like that.
Yeah, she's in that range, and like she's 19 here, so they aged her up, which I respect that part. Like the MCU as a whole, like most of the characters are older anyway, so like that part I don't have a problem with. The thing that is different, like the Riri in the comics is more withdrawn, kind of. I don't want to say, I don't know how to describe it without saying something silly or offensive, so I'll skip that part. But she is more like a withdrawn, kind of like she doesn't quite understand how a lot of like society works around her, and she just kind of does her own thing. But she is like super smart, super intelligent, and just kind of like just trying to figure out how to fit in amongst everybody else. And in the fact she is so smart leads her to being placed around adults all the time. So that's another barrier to her understanding the world around her. So like that was completely different. But I mean, like, I still like this version of her. I just didn't like how they kind of downgraded her towards the end. And then she got the cool suit, and then they was like, yoink. And some people have said that Riri as a character and her plot line kind of wasn't necessary. Like, just in general, just the Wakanda, just like anybody could have made that device. And, after that, it really is on Wakanda for like making themselves known, making vibranium known, and Namor and the Talokan people could have attacked just for that. And you didn't need Riri for that. And I can kind of see where they're going just because it would have saved some minutes in the movie. I don't know if I agree with it. I'll have to see Ironheart because I feel like the film took Riri from just some girl at MIT to like, I'm ready to do some superhero type shit. And if Ironheart, the TV show, goes back and downgrades her and like we have to restart that process over, then yeah, I'm going to agree. There was no point in having Riri in this film. She could have just been in her own TV show. Like if it's the same thing as Daredevil in Netflix, like season 1, where the whole thing got to build up to her getting the costume, you wasted time. Like she should be immediately ready to do some superhero shit. She was fighting a whole invading force. Can't downgrade her after that. I'm sorry. Like the writer that's doing Ironheart just gonna have to accept that. Will, what did you think of the character?
I agree with anyone else that had the same opinion. I felt like she was someone I would literally end up meeting on a college campus, and literally felt like, yeah, this one of my people. Because the way she came off, I was just like, yeah. She's someone I'll probably hang out with. She might be a little too smart for my ass, but at the same time, I still hang out with her because she's
smart
cool
for everybody in that movie except Shuri.
Yeah, meeting of the minds, if you will. But I thought she was pretty fucking cool. I do think that the whole jump of like, oh damn, I made a thing for class. Oh wait, somebody else got it. Oh, now I'm about to be dead. Maybe I don't know. She was having so many moments that sounded like something that I probably would have said in those exact moments. I was just like, yeah, she did her part. She did her part, especially after the whole like After Shuri punched that fucking dummy into the wall. Can I have some of that? Shit. Can I have some of that? She asked that so quick. I said, "Yeah, I want it too." What's up, man? What's up?
Oh no. I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna let you go, and then because I gotta bring up something else related to the film, like a surprise guest appearance at the show. I mean,
oh
the film
yeah.
Oh,
I do want to talk about that. But go ahead.
Okay, but yeah, but Riri was just definitely a fun character. I will admit that she was kind of fun to see in the show because like she kind of, I ain't gonna say she broke the tension and broke like that whole seriousness out, but like in the parts that she was in, she definitely made it fun to watch because she had the reactions of a normal person being amidst this type of stuff, and she's just like, damn, I kind of left my normal life now. I was supposed to be in differential equations 2 days ago. Why am I here? So it was just fun to see that. And also the thing you mentioned about how she was being withdrawn in the comic books, and you said she's younger in the comic books, right?
Yeah.
I would honestly kind of like almost just say she was kind of just being a teenager put into a space she's not used to. That's what I would kind of describe that as. She's just a teenager ahead of the rest of her peers. So she's with people that are doing things that she can do, but they're just older than her. I couldn't think of a word, but I would just think that's just her being a teenager.
Well, it's kind of like and shout outs to all the 90s kids who know about this. Kind of like Smart Guy. You know how Smart Guy, the TV show Smart Guy, where put him
definitely love that show
in a high school environment that he honestly didn't belong in, but he had to learn how to fit in.
Right. That is a good way to describe that. Also, shout out to Smart Guy because I'm knowing that like everybody gonna call us old as hell because that show went off a while ago. It was goated though. Terrence, what did you think of Riri?
So I'll be honest, I kind of was indifferent about her. Like I mean. But after listening to the way you all talked about it, it's like I can find some more pros with her because I'll admit, like I felt like she served her purpose. Like she served her purpose for the film. One thing that I will say that I just thought about is, as Will was talking, is that I think it was helpful for her to be around because she kind of felt like a sister in a sense for Shuri's. For Shuri. And Shuri kind of need that. She was kind of like how Bruce was to Tony, kind of like kindred spirits in a sense in terms of just like being really smart and no one else kind of like understanding them on like a certain level. That's kind of how I felt with her, with Riri and Shuri, is that, no one in Wakanda is as smart as them. And yeah, well, not in Wakanda, but I mean just like nobody that they were around throughout the movie was like on their level in a sense. But overall, Riri, I think she was fine. She felt kind of like a stand-in a sense, stand-in for us, like as like you all have said, like she felt like just a regular black girl, and it was kind of cool to, you could kind of see us as like if like the audience was meant to be like any kind of character, it would be Riri, like the character who just kind of like plopped into this very weird situation and it's just like, well, what's going on? It's like every moment she was just like, well, what is this? Like, why is this happening? Like, what are we doing? I liked her, and I'm interested to see where things go from here. Yeah, I think she just kind of like served her purpose for the movie. Like, I liked her character, but at the same time, it's like she's not the way the movie ended. She's one of those characters where I'm not like just like begging to see her again. Like I do want to see her again, but it's not like, oh man, I definitely, whatever she's in next, I gotta see that, kind of thing. Like she didn't leave that kind of impression on me. Like I said, it's not that I don't like her. It's just that
I don't think she had enough time focused on her to get that kind of.
And at the end of the day, the movie isn't really about her. She's literally she's part of the supporting cast, So maybe when she shows up in her own series or whatever other series or TV movie she shows up in, and she gets more screen time, then I'll grow to like her more. But just for this movie, I thought that she was fine.
I agree. As far as like cutting time, I feel like the one character whose time they could have cut was Martin Freeman character, Everett Ross. Like you could have definitely cut that character. Like
if I do have beef with, well, not beef, but if there is some criticism I have the movie, is that it felt like some of the CIA stuff, like anytime that I get why that had to happen and why it was in the movie, but I felt like whenever that kind of stuff came up, it kind of dragged a little bit and took us out of where we need to be. But
Yeah, none of that. Like that whole like it felt like he was just there so that they could crack some colonizer jokes. And I mean, like they was funny. I was laughing, but like if you needed to save some time, you could have cut that whole plot line. The only thing I felt like it accomplished was it finally made me take Julia Louis-Dreyfus character as Valentina as like an actual villain. Because up until that point, like I saw Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and all of that, all I saw was just Elaine. And I ain't even like a Seinfeld dude like that. I just saw Elaine. Like I wasn't seeing a villain.
That's all I saw too. She still was funny.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like she was like when she showed up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, she was more like humorous and funny and stuff like that. And so like I you could tell that there was supposed to be like some evilness to her, but like you didn't see it. It was only with this that I was like, oh, okay. Like when she like confronted her ex and he's like, can you imagine what we'd be like if we had that weapons and they're really kind about it? And she was like, no.
I dream of that.
When she said that, I was like,
I was like, whoa.
I was like, yeah. That's when I saw the villainy and I'm like, oh, okay. So that part was kind of important to like the overall MCU story, but to the overall story of Black Panther, that shit just what you could have cut that and it would have been the same film, to be honest with you. It wasn't really building all the tension like that. Rakeem, what did you think of Riri?
I kind of agree with a little bit of all your points. Sage, I did feel like she felt like a MacGuffin in points in the film. I go back to my original point that I did like the humanization of her as a character I liked. But I felt like this was just a teaser. It wasn't a lot of importance placed on her. And I'm not gonna lie, like when it got to the later half of the film, because there wasn't as much development with her in the film itself, when she put the armor on, like the last armor on, there was a little bit of a disconnect. I feel like that moment should have been bigger. Like when she finally first put the armor on. Of course, like you said, when she gets her own story, they can't do the same thing over again. It's gonna be a jumping off point from here. I think when she goes into maybe the Armor Wars plotline, whatever comes next, is Armor Wars or Ironheart between each other, or is it just Armor Wars?
I'm not sure.
Iron Wars is now a movie, so I don't know.
Yeah, I know Armor Wars is a movie now.
Armor Wars, whatever I called it.
I don't know if you are good. I don't know if that's gonna be like the next one or if Ironheart's first. I think Ironheart has a date, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Ironheart is supposed to come out in 2023.
Maybe so. You know, the rate they're doing these TV shows, it really wouldn't surprise me if it's in 2023.
Yeah, they late 2023.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think Armor
it
Wars
makes sense to not keep her character to not keep her character on cold storage for too long. You know.
Yeah.
And I will say she kind of her position in this movie kind of reminds me of Spider-Man in Civil War, where he just shows up in the movie. Then he kind of gets his more development later, but he's tied into the overall story as a part of another movie first, and then he gets his own story.
Well, let me ask y'all this, that being the case, because the way Terrence described it, like for me, Spider-Man in fact, actually both characters, because like Spider-Man guest starred in Civil War, and so did Black Panther, and I felt like they kind of stole the show.
They did
in every scene that they were in.
That's true.
Do y'all feel like Riri did that in like her scenes in this film?
Personally, I wouldn't say so. I don't think she stole. Nah.
She didn't steal anything.
Nah.
Like when we talk about Black Panther, especially in Civil War, like he definitely stole the show because of the importance of what happened in the story. Like he had, getting revenge for the death of his father, this big moment, and that jumping off point. He helped create the tension of that story.
He did.
So like she was like the MacGuffin in the story. She added a little bit more to the levity of the story, more grounding, but not the tension. So, she helped ground the story, but
Black Panther probably is a bad comparison just because like so much of Civil War works only because of Black Panther. Yes. And in fact, like that was the emotional crux of the film, because at one point Zemo's like, I want to break all the superheroes, and Black Panther's supposed to kill him, and that was supposed to give Zemo the ultimate victory, and Black Panther was like, nope. You're not gonna break me. And he was just like the one noble man that stood above everything else. And like Riri she didn't have that kind of importance. So she's more along the lines of Spider-Man. What's up, Keen?
Thank you for bringing that up, because now that you said that, I realized the parallel between that and the ending of the movie with Shuri. The same situation where she kind of had to rise above and be in that regard, not give in to what you think was going to happen.
Since we there,
oh yeah,
we got to talk about it.
Okay.
Man, Killmonger popping up.
Yo, Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
Yo, man.
This was great.
At first, I didn't.
Yeah.
How long did it take y'all to get why she was seeing him?
It took me
sorry. Go ahead, Rakeem.
It took me about maybe like a few minutes of the conversation. I thought about the beginning of the film when she was like kind of going against tradition and like not buying into the ancestors. She didn't even believe in the spiritual stuff and all that. She was more grounded, and it was like she was kind of separating herself from her culture a little bit. And I thought about Killmonger is like that kind of was his thing. He was kind of like separating from those old traditions and values and things like that, and forging his own path and through violence and power and things like that. So I thought it was like a parallel. Like it was like seeing that was like seeing her. Which way is she gonna go with this? Is she gonna give in to that anger that she feels within herself and go the route of Killmonger, where he's gonna wage war and kind of be consumed by vengeance? And he kind of felt like a little devil on your shoulder kind of character. That's why I got.
I mean, that's exactly
he
what
was definitely that.
And I felt like that when I seen him. At first, I was like, "Why is she seeing?" And then I realized, like, oh,
she's on the path of vengeance. Yeah.
Because they was like, "What do you want?" And she was like, "I want to burn." Like, they just killed my mom. I want this man to die. And like, I could understand. Like, in fact, she was really kind about it because, like, more evil, and you could tell even when she was angry, she still had that nice anger. Because with all the technology they came up, first off, they beat Namor with a humidifier, so. I just don't know what we're gonna do about that. But just the fact, like, she could have come up with some really evil tech. Y'all a group of people that live underwater. What if we found a way to make it so that y'all can't breathe underwater no more? What then? So, like, she could have come up with all types of really evil, like, twisted shit. And really all she wanted to do is just whoop Namor ass. And like, once she got that, she was like, you know what? Your people ain't really bad like that. And let's just work together. And she just chose not to kill him. But like, I totally understood why she saw Killmonger, because she was like, no, I'm pissed and I need vengeance and I think seeing Killmonger was what inspired the change in her, because she realized like, whoa, is that who I'm turning into? And that kind of like pulled her away from it. At least until she had that conversation. But it was
the suit for me. When she finally got into the suit and I looked at it and I thought about the first movie, I was like, I don't like where this is going.
Oh, like the accents, like the gold accents on it and everything?
Yes.
How it looked like
I didn't think about that.
I didn't either.
That's what tipped me even further on it. I was like, I know why he appeared. She mad. And I don't blame her in that moment. But if she had went any further, she would have been just like him.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
That's when I was like, and then the suit, I was like, yeah, she might slide right off the edge if she doesn't watch what she does.
And you know what? I think that's like another interesting look at, grief, how you have that conflict, the way that her mom died is like, you're not just going to easily get over that. He's like, yeah, you are going to want to, fucking bury the dude who did that to her. So I completely understand why she would feel those emotions and kind of like relate to Killmonger in that regard,
Now that you say it, and I'd have to go back and re-watch it, but there probably is an analogy to the 5 stages of grief, because the opening is like her dealing with denial. The ending is definitely with acceptance, and Killmonger was definitely the anger part of it, where she was like, nope. Because you want someone to blame when people that you care about die. Like, you want something that you can fight, something that you can punch, something that you can do something about, so that you could, like, maybe if I had won this fight, I could have changed something. And, like, eventually you understand, like, no, that anger is not, it's not gonna fix the solution. And so you do have to come to a sort of acceptance. And so, like, I'd have to rewatch it to catch all the beats, but like, I'm positive that that's in there now that you point that out. Rakeem, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of lost my point while you were talking because I was so engrossed in your conversation. But going now I think I remember now. Going back to the talking about the situation with Killmonger, when she saw Killmonger, when I thought about when they go into the spiritual realm, when they take the plant, I remember in the first movie T'Challa that was kind of like dealing with confrontation. So when T'Challa saw his father, he had to deal with the confrontation that his father did things that weren't necessarily good, and like this ideology he brought, he became the Black Panther to avenge his father. He had a lot of respect for his father. And it's like this, with Michael B. Jordan showing up, this revelation that his father did something that was kind of messed up. He had to confront that. And like the part about holding back the technology and not helping people in society, things that needed to be changed. It was a conflict with ideologies. Whereas in this movie, she saw Michael B. Jordan because she saw the conflict within herself, dealing with her emotions and her vengeance and anger, and trying to find the conduit to express that. And you had brought up a great point, Sage, how when you're angry, you want something to fight. In the beginning of the movie, one of the reasons she was empty is because the child just died, and there was nothing to fight. He just died from this disease, and she took her anger out on her culture. She's like, we couldn't save him through all this. We have all this technology, the greatest technology in the world, and this mysticism, and none of it could save this man who protected us and who was our hero and my brother. And so she kind of lashed out at her own culture because of that loss to T'Challa. Whereas when Namor kills her mother, it's a very easy target. It's a very straightforward target. Him and
automatic.
Oh yeah, that was a great point. That's why I thought about the parallels. That's what I thought about, those parallels from like the first movie, the conflict he had with his father, and her parallels with a conflict within herself. I thought that was interesting.
So I guess the last question I asked before we wrap it up, what do y'all think Talokan is going to try to be like on some villainous shit going forward? Because I feel like they kind of can't. Like, I feel like Secret Invasion about to pop up. Like, and that's another thing. I hate having to ask this question whenever they do anything new with Marvel characters that we don't already know. But like, the blip should have told y'all, you got more problems than the surface world. Like Thanos, Thanos don't care nothing about your surface world conflict, underwater. He don't give a damn about none of that shit. All he talking about is, I'm about to wipe out half of y'all, and you need to you gonna have to work with people. So what's up, Terrence?
I was gonna say, that's actually something me and my friends talked about. Like, they didn't really, and I guess I can't
keep addressing the blip over and over again. Every time you introduce something new, like that's just getting in the way of the storytelling. But it is gonna be in people's heads. Yeah,
it's one of those things where it's like, well, what were you all doing during the blip? Like, did you all know what was going on the surface? Like, what did you know why like half your people disappeared? Like, what was going on during that? Like,
well, they had to know, because otherwise they would have just marched on everybody else.
Yeah,
but like in your head, you should have been like, oh, we should probably look into the surface world. We should probably maybe start making some inroads to working with people. We got the power to wipe them out if need be, but we might need to start. And also, Rakeem brought up a really great point. At the end of this film, he brought it up while we were talking about it on the way home. At the end of this film, people still don't know Namor and his people exist.
Yeah, they don't.
They were
still trying to blame Wakanda for everything.
Yep. They don't know about nobody else. And I'm like, man, y'all still might want to start making some inroads, talk to the UN. I know they on some fuck shit, but you still might need to start, because like it's up. Thanos ain't the only threat out there. The Skrulls, the Kree Empire, hell, the Shi'ar, like all of them, they not playing, and they don't care nothing about whatever problems you got.
Whatever Doctor Strange is fighting now, the incursions. That whole
universe is
just
being
different
popped
level
out of existence.
Yeah,
like whatever problems you got, you better learn to work them out, because like they don't care nothing about whatever you got going. Like, oh, we don't trust the surface people. All right, you're gonna be dead not trusting the surface people too. You better learn how to call Captain America on the phone and say, hey, bro, like, what the Avengers Initiative, like, you need some funding. Like, I know Tony Stark, he up out of here. Like, maybe we can help out. You can have an undersea base or something. You better figure it out, because they not playing. And so like with
problems. We the problem.
Shit, that's what the Skrull about to show up. The Skrull Secret Empire is about to happen. It's not Secret Empire, Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion is about to happen, where the Skrulls basically show up and say, oh, this our planet now. This our home world.
Man,
we gonna take it from you.
Skrulls are such cool villains. Like
they are. I like the Skrulls.
And I think that's where Martin Freeman's character is gonna show up next. I think I think he talked about like Secret Invasion and shit, and I'm like, that's cool, but like, I don't think he can keep being a villain. Am I wrong? Like, what do you think, Keem?
I see where you're coming from. I still think, let's be honest, Sage. Earlier in this very podcast, you said, you can't fool me. You a fuck boy. I feel like he's one of those characters who's like they're gonna have him help, but he's like that type of person where he's like he don't want to listen, and he gonna be the hard-headed dude who think he can handle everything until he get punched in the mouth. He gonna have to get punched in the mouth by somebody else because he still think he that dude. And once he get punched in the mouth, he be like, "Help, please!" Just like in the movie, be like, "I can see, I give up. No mas, no mas."
Yeah, that's the answer right there. Just a punch in the mouth will stop all of this. Super Scroll come over there and hit him with the thing fist. God, like, all right, well, you right. I need to knock it off. Will, what do you think? Like, you think Talokan and Namor and them, they gonna continue to be villains, or are they gonna try to like do a turnaround?
They're gonna have to do a turnaround, and with Namor being their leader, just like Keem said, it's gonna take a punch. But what you want to know it's gonna take? It ain't gonna be a punch to him. It's gonna be a punch to his people.
It need to be a punch to the Namor.
That's what's
she ain't learn her lesson.
Because that's what's gonna make him be like, okay, so maybe them taking out them 4 buildings with those 80,000 people in it, I might have to go ahead and, hey, Cap, come help. It's gonna have to be that. It's gonna have to. He gonna have to learn the hard way, and it ain't gonna be damage to him. It's gonna be his people. Once they hit his people, that's when he gonna wise up and be like, okay, I was wrong. I'm strong. Let me help y'all. Help me help you. Help me help you. So please. He gonna say it that way too. I didn't say it wrong on purpose either way. He gonna say it that way. Help me help you. Get rid of them, so I can live.
Terrence, what about you, man? What do you think it's gonna take? Like, do you think he's gonna stay like kind of an antagonist, or do you think he's going to come around Vegeta style?
I think, and this is kind of like pulling back and looking at the overall plan. I think there's definitely like a war brewing, and I don't think it's just between Wakanda and Talokan. I mean, as we talked about with the CIA, you know, Val, she wants to smoke, and so I don't know exactly.
I'm gonna need her to get punched.
I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I think maybe in a future Black Panther movie, there's going to be like some kind of tensions that are going to have to be sorted out. I don't know if Namor is going to continue to be a villain. I think at some point, especially when we start getting to like the bigger threats, like the more like cosmic threats, I think Namor is going to have to put his silliness aside and join up with Wakanda, the Avengers, and whoever else to try and stop like this overall threat. Because I mean, the next movie we have coming out is Ant-Man Quantumania. So, and that's, you know, looking at the quantum realm, and Kang's going to show up there. So, yeah, there's much bigger threats going on than what Namor knows about.
Than what he got going on.
Yeah, than what he has going on. So, I do think there is something brewing between Wakanda and Talokan, but I don't know if that's going to be addressed first, or I don't know if that's going to be addressed first before we get to like the overall like big stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I got you.
What's up, Kim? You had a point. What's up?
Oh yeah, one last thing. Speaking back to Namor, them directly name dropping that he was a mutant. I feel like that was very much on purpose. And
I was kind of wondering about that myself.
1,000%.
Yeah.
You know, he's not the first mutant anymore. He was at one point canonically the first mutant.
Wow.
And then they made Apocalypse the first mutant.
Yeah, that's
whatever.
right.
But like, he that was 1,000% on purpose. Yeah. They've been kind of hinting at it. You know, Miss Marvel, they made her a mutant, which I think is a mistake, but that's neither here nor there. They played the music in the background when they said it. So like they're building up to it. So yeah. Terrence, did you say you want to mention something?
No, that was it. I think that I'm just very curious to see if they address the tensions between Wakanda and Talokan before anything bigger happens, you know.
And Rakeem, you was like, I mentioned something about it, but like I know that was on purpose, but what I don't know, like, because he does have a tie to the X-Men, right. But there's no X-Men films coming.
I'm still thinking that's a tease for something in the future. If they don't have any X-Men films coming, but we know they want to use X-Men at some point.
Well, I mean, they now have Hugh Jackman and, you know, Deadpool coming, so Well, Wolverine and Deadpool coming, so I mean, and then they reference the X-Men and She-Hulk is like, when the X-Men coming in, Kevin was like, just relax.
Yeah. And then they had Charles Xavier and
yeah, he's in Doctor Strange too. Yeah,
Doctor Strange. So they definitely are hinting at it overall, but they might not have a full plan yet. Maybe just keeping in people's minds to know that, hey, X-Men are coming at some point.
I mean, they got a plan, but whatever that plan is, they're not sharing it with us.
Nah, they keeping that shit like tight-lipped as possible. As tight-lipped as Marvel is.
We've seen plans up to the end of Phase 6, and there wasn't no X-Men on that bitch. You had Deadpool 3, but how canon that is to the MCU, like the main MCU universe, I don't know. It may not be. It may just be its own thing. Pocket universe type shit. Who knows?
Maybe one day we'll just watch a film and just in the background and keep hearing to see Cyclops and Angel just running in the background for no reason.
That's when it would be time, and I would love to actually get into that with y'all, but I feel like we've run long as hell as it is. So I think that's gonna wrap it up for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, I need a few things from you. I need you to do us a favor and hit that subscription button on YouTube. I need you to follow us on Twitter and TikTok. I need you to tell your friends about us, and I need you to do me a personal favor and have an excellent week. Peace.